Thank you for coming. It's such a privilege and treasure that we have the Dharma, we have each other, and we have this place. I read somewhere years ago that early in the 1900s, there was a large outbreak. It sounds like a plague or something. There was a large outbreak of Buddhism in New York State. And many, many people practicing. And they didn't build centers. And it came and went. Isn't that interesting? So we have this gorgeous place on a sunny morning. And we have a few people here for the first time that I met with. Would those of you that are here for the first time please raise your hand? Yeah, well, welcome. I hope this is a good fit for you. And if it isn't, I hope you'll keep looking, because here in Portland we have such a wealth of spiritual traditions. We have people. Well, the one thing this isn't a guarantee by any means, but I suggest that when you're looking for a place or teachers, look for people who've been doing it for 30 plus years. That if it's, 2 months ago I got enlightened at Brightonbush, and now and watch out for the, what's the word? Constantly loving, or there's words that are, speak of the shadow not being incorporated. But the way we begin is to remind ourselves of the refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Refuge in that which is awake, in the Buddha, in the Dharma, in what we discover when we're awake, the way things actually are, and the Sangha, the community of practice, and the community of practice that comes down to us through time. In planetary terms, it's not long, 2,600 years. But in modern humanity, it's quite a while that this practice has been happening, and very similar to what we're doing here. This isn't something that I or the other teachers here at PIMC made up. We have our own personalities through which it comes, but these are really ancient teachings. And they've worked for people for a long time. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. Dharma, I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. Sangha, I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Dharma, take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya. How wise to take refuge in something other than youth, health, power, money, success. Instead, we remind ourselves as deeply as we can. Something really mysterious is happening right here, which is there is consciousness. There is the capacity to know what's happening inside us and around us. What's happening at our senses. And to become really curious. Breathing is happening. How is it to pay attention to breathing in and breathing out? What do we really discover? The body is remarkably alive. It is nothing but life. So we can notice the contact of the body with the cushion or the chair. We can notice the life in the hands and the fingers, the thumbs, in the face. For a long time now, since the moment of our birth, this breathing in and breathing out has happened. It is our participating in the communion of life. Each breath has a beginning. And in that beginning, it comes out of nowhere. It truly doesn't exist, and then it does. And then there's this expansion, chest and abdomen. And then it reaches fullness, and then a decline begins, and then it declines, and then ultimately disappears. For most of our lives, this breathing has gone unobserved. We take it for granted. We can use it, however, as an extraordinary home base, a place of point of reference. Because with that as our intended point of observation, it becomes more obvious when the mind wanders off into the past and future, into planning, into wanting, into not wanting, into restlessness and sleepy dullness and doubting. So when the mind awakens to the wanderingness of itself, it can ever so kindly, gently, mercifully come home to the sensations of breathing in and breathing out. No violence is needed, nor is it helpful. Once we put it in motion, this waking up has a life of its own. We sit, we form the intention to stay with the breath. And then there is awakening to the wandering and returning to the breath. No violence, no pressure. there are many strategies developed by different teachers over the decades and millennia to help with remembering this intention to stay with the breath. One is to simply note the breath. If you're practicing at the chest and abdomen, it would be to note rising, rising. Chest and abdomen rising. When falling, it's falling, falling. When the mind is discovered wandering, the little mental note would be wandering, wandering. Or if there's worrying, simply worrying, worrying. Not to make the noting central, but they're like little arrows that point at the direct experience of sensations of breathing in and breathing out. we are the recipients of great wisdom, great love and generosity from the teachings of our forebears. From Ajahn Chah in Thailand in the last century comes this simple but potent guidance. Whenever you want to bring your practice into perfect balance, simply remember, this moment is like this. The experience of this moment is never wrong or a mistake. It's what is. It's like this. We awaken in the midst of wandering minds and emotions of every color and stripe. We awaken in energy states all the way from manic craziness to deep tranquility to sleepy dullness. So in this moment, the breath is like this. Rising, rising, falling, falling. nothing stays the same for very long. And this, of course, includes the body-mind, this body and its changingness, and this mind in its remarkable changingness. In this practice, in a way, we commit a willingness to be with whatever occurs. It may be very pleasant, even extraordinarily pleasant. Or it may be mildly unpleasant or really unpleasant. We develop this profound curiosity. What's happening? What is it to be this human being? We manifest a certain willingness and effort to persist, to make that gentle but really persistent effort to come home to the actual sensations of breathing. This moment is like this. Please become aware of what you think of as your feet. Suddenly they come to the foreground of your knees and thighs, of the pressure where the body presses against the chair, of the back, of the fingers and hands and arms, shoulders, the torso where the breathing continues to billow inwards and outwards, and the neck, the jaw and the cheeks, the lips, the forehead, and the eyes. Notice it's possible to roll the eyes around inside their beautiful lubricated sockets. Somehow or another, we're capable of motor movements. And now noticing the intention, which is in the mind, an intention to open the eyes, and then letting that intention happen, let it operationalize. And notice what happens. Seeing objects appear. Objects, seeing. And then maybe a little stretch is in order. Notice how that happens, though. Don't do it unconsciously. Why not be present for every little gesture of life? And let's have the basic show of sanity, show of hands. Who feels saner than they did when they walked in and more relaxed? All that with doing nothing, right? And a little voting for the experience of desire, about wanting something. Anybody have that? Wanting. You can be honest. You can also vote numerous times in this election. How about not wanting, disliking? How about restlessness and agitation and worry? Oh, that's winning so far. You can vote with two hands too. And how about sloth and torpor, dullness, sleepy? How about doubt? Does this work? What am I doing here? How about emotions, sadness, fear, bliss, delight, love, metta, compassion? It's busy, isn't it? This human mind. Well, we're lucky we have Jim Dalton with us once again to lead us in a little, for those of you that are here for the first time, Jim will do some Qigong, mindful movement. Avi will do some announcements. And then I will come back, and I have a plan to talk about our emotional nature and surviving with it, learning to be more kind and attentive to that part of ourselves. So, 'tis yours, sir. The helm is yours. Hello to those of you joining us on the internet. Forgot to greet you earlier. Lovely to know you're there. Alrighty, let's get this out of here before it kinks. All right.
Okay, now we're. Okay. This isn't right. It worked last week. Oh, there it is. All right. So we're in touch with our feet first. And maybe rock a little bit. Up on the toes, back on the heels. Feel all the different sensations in the bottoms of the feet, into the ankles. Then bring the feet together and put your hands on your knees. And, we're not going to do the hokey pokey. Go the other direction. Just feel all that elasticity in the ankles and the knees and the hips. And then open your arms. Press. And relax. We'll get our feet parallel and feel that centeredness where everything is moving down into the earth. You can feel it in your heels, in your toes, and the sides of your soles of the foot. And then the intention to sink, sinking, and then the intention to lift and letting the arms drift up. Yeah, letting go of that intention, the arms rest down. There's a fluidity in the shoulders. The hands are just relaxed. The knees are soft so we can sink a little bit. Almost like we're sitting down on a little stool behind us. And then this time we'll rise and then open and feel the lungs expand, the rib cage relax a little bit more to the side. A little more volume to the breathing when we open. And that changes the mood a little bit. We're more engaged with our energy level. It's noticeably bigger and larger and freer. Then we'll reach overhead and paint a rainbow and feel the stretch along one side of the rib cage and then on the other. Just easing into this painting process. It's not reaching too high, not too relaxed so you can't get a nice, smooth arc, not arch, then sink across the wrists and come up. And there are all these sensations as we open, release, surrender to gravity, and then bring one hand across the other. You can feel it in your shoulder blades. And then come up and push up towards the heavens and then release. Shoulder blades activate until you reach up and then relax the shoulder blades. The arms just drift down. One more time. Then pausing for a second, feeling the effects of all this movement. Most of this has been up and down. Now draw one hip back and stretch out both arms. Press forward with the back hand and press up with the palm in the front. And you just kind of pull in and push forward at the same time. Twist the wrists and do the opposite. Open hands, no tension in the hands, just a soft stretch forward or a pull in. Let the hips rotate around the central axis. One stretches forward, the other hip pulls back. And getting a little lower and wider swing. We'll move all the way around in a circle. And again, the mood changes when the circle gets bigger. And then pause again. Feel the effects. Even when we come to stillness, there's a flow. Part of it is the breath, but part of it is just the natural flow of your energy, which is like a fingerprint. It's unique to you. And every day it's slightly different. Let's reach across now and lift the heel off the floor. Feel the engaged leg, and then it slowly releases and relaxes, and the other leg takes over, and we can lift the other heel off the floor. So we have these basic yin-yang balancing. One leg is softer, one is stronger. One arm is reaching, one arm is resting. And we can feel sensations that tell us when we reach the top of the swing, what happens with the wrist when we release. The floor is starting to speak to us. And then we'll turn and gaze at the moon. That moves the weight a little differently, so the floor has something different to say. So the joints are warmed up, a little more fluid. We can take one hand and aim for the corner, Feel that stretch and the different engagement of the feet on the floor when the intention is to reach to the corner. There's this basic intelligence that organizes a whole new set of sensations. And if we can resist the holding, then there's just more flow through the joints. Reaching across, we'll focus on the palm of the hand. Let the other palm face the earth and draw both hands across the center. We get to the other side, switch, and gently come back like a cloud drifting across the sky. But there's a connection between the cloud and the shadow underneath. They move together. There's some sort of coordination function in our intelligence of our body. We can keep the hands in two different positions, then switch. But the rate at which we're turning is constant. The speed, the intensity. Qigong teachers call that silk reeling, like we're pulling a filament of silk out of a cocoon with just the right intensity so it doesn't break. But we get the full, long pull in one direction, one intensity, and then the other. Okay, and we relax for a second, feel the effects. The first half of the form, of the routine, loosens everything up, and then we get a little more energetic and put this nice flow to work. Splashing in the sea, we step forward and cross the wrists. When we back off, the arms open up. When we cross the wrists, again, the shoulder blades relax and stretch along the back of the spine, like a little massage for our middle back and upper back. Then come back to the center, step out to the other side, and continue this massage. And the size of the movement seems to correlate with the depth of the feelings. More energy, more engagement. Softening a little bit, we can just ride the waves gently, but there's energy taking us forward and back. We know when we're reaching the end of each segment. And back to the center. We'll step out to the other side, ride the wave in this direction, but the bottoms of the feet are constantly shifting in their balancing coordination. Slow down and open the arms, step forward, and then turn the wrist and feel all of the ligaments and muscles turning from the shoulder all the way down to the fingertips. So this is another massage for the arms more than the spine, but you can't find a boundary between. One more. And then back to the center. Again, set up, reach and turn, and rock back. So the wrists are turning, the feet are engaging in the front in one way and a different feeling in the back. All right, back to the center. Another energetic move where we let the dragon rise from the sea. feel the power in the upper legs. And the mood is slightly different. More agency, maybe more delight. Spread the wings and fly. Up on the toes, we have balance with wide wing spread. And then turning the wheel, everything gets involved. Again, emotional uplift. We've got to go down to come up, but it doesn't feel like we're going down. It's just round, go the other way. And back to the center. Get balanced for a second and then open the coordination box. Can you lift one knee and one arm at the same time on the opposite sides? Like playing with a marionette across the body. Okay. Then relaxing down. There's two major energy centers near the lymph nodes above and below, and we just bring the energy past those 4 points, two at the shoulder level, and then two down at the seam between the legs and the torso. New energy in with each in-breath, and releasing what we don't need, giving it back to the earth. And the earth is constantly exchanging energy with us. So as we get refreshed, the earth is refreshed. We're participating in this little dance. Then pausing. Noticing the flow. There's never the same flow of energy from one moment to another. There's this constant reassessment, rebalancing, letting loose of tight areas, waking up dormant areas, establishing the balance, losing it, getting it back. And then we'll sink one more time and open to the side. And gather all this experience together into a big circle on each side. Lots of pitter-patter up there. Or down there. I don't know where it's coming from. All right. Thank you very much. Another good session. There you go, sir.
Dharma consults.
Sure.
Okay. Good morning, Sangha. Good morning out there in internet land. I hope everything is out in here and out there is great. For those of you who do not know, my name is Avi. I'm community coordinator here. I've got some announcements. I will tell you that I had the gift of being able to look directly at my own sense of self-importance this morning as I was on my way to work. I learned there was a marathon. I did not know there was a marathon. And if you were trying to get over to Southeast from Southwest, all of Macadam was closed, so was the Selwood Bridge and the Ross Island Bridge, which meant you had to go all the way around. And I got to have a good session of breathing with myself and reminding myself that it was okay. And it was. I'm here. So anyway, just thought I'd share that. In terms of volunteer needs, we have some things that are continuing. As always, we are always in need of people to sign up in the children's education program on Sundays. This is where we are taking care of the next generation of PIMC people who will one day be sitting out here along with the rest of us. And if you would like a hand in that, and the continuity of the Sangha, which has been going on in one form or another, as Robert had said, for about 40 years, that would be an excellent way to do it. And if you did it even for an hour or two on one Sunday, that would be great. But if you could do it on a regular basis, like once a month or once every other month, that would be spectacular. And you can do that on the website. There is a nice little box there on the home page where you just go right there, you sign up, and you can sign up for as many slots as you want. Also, we are still, I think, in need of a third Sunday greeter. No, we don't. Ipsy is giving me the shaking finger, so no. We're good. We're good. Forget that. We are good. We have all the greeters that we need. A reminder about parking to spare our neighbors, if you can. If you don't have mobility impairment, if you can park, say, within a block or so away from the building, that is good for our neighbors and good for the tenants who see clients down here in the building. Things that are going on. So at the end of the Dharma talk, we are going to have our monthly meeting of the Engaging the Dharma initiative. That will be in the living room. Then on Tuesday, October 8th, we've got our Skillful Speech practice group. On Saturday, October 12th, Robert is going to be at Hollyhock. The information on how to sign up for that is on the webpage. On Sunday, October 13th, we've got our second Sunday PIMC potluck, which is next week. And then on the 19th, October 19th, we've got Caverly Morgan, a wonderful teacher who will be doing a day-long retreat here. And then also on Saturday the 19th, Jim will be doing one of his Qigong half-day retreats. Then and also on October 19th, then we will be having Buddhist Movie Night. We'll be screening Kumare. Information is on the website. Then on Saturday, October 26th, we have our Fall Karma Yoga Service Volunteer Day and Pizza Party. We are going to get some things done for fall, and we are going to have pizza. And I will leave it to you to decide which of those is the most important. Then also, on the late afternoon of Saturday, October 26th, we're going to have our first family, let's see, what do we call it? Family music jam potluck, where families with kids will be able to come in. I'm not exactly sure where. Tia, are you around? Tia's not here. So it's going to be somewhere. It's going to be somewhere around, either in here or in the living room, where parents will be able to get to know one another. Kids will be able to run amok, sort of, under parental supervision, with lots of parents sort of watching them and getting to know one another at the same time. And hopefully that will be the first of a regular series of events for parents. So if you have little ones, or you know of people with little ones who have wanted to attend, and it was like they were aware that it was kind of problematic, let them know that we are trying to accommodate the needs of families here, and that we are setting up a parents' Google group. I will be sending notices out about that, so hopefully parents can get more access to the Dharma here. Then on the 27th, we've got a retreat. Robert has a retreat at Brighton Bush. Details are on the website. On Saturday, November 2nd, we've got our first Saturday monthly day-long retreat. And then on Sunday, November 3rd, we've got another monthly newcomer orientation session. I also wanted to let you know that we do Dharma consults here. We make it available for you to talk with an experienced practitioner if you have stuff coming up in your practice or you want a quick on-ramp to a practice. Jim would be happy to meet with folks for about 20 minutes today. If you can't do it today, please contact me and I will set up something for you. And if you want to let us know who you are, there is a sign-up sheet back there on the clipboard, blue sheets of paper. Please fill out your John or Jane Hancock and give us your contact info, and you can get PIMC emails delivered directly to your inbox. And we would love to do that for you. So thank you very much for being here. Have a blessed day. On with the show.
This is the Burmese monk's bowl. It was mine back in 1979 when I did novice ordination in Rangoon for a week with Tongpulu Sayadaw. He sent me with it home, which is unusual. And maybe he knew something I didn't know, that we would have a center ultimately. But this is a transformer. It looks very different from the transformers up on the poles outside, but this transforms your work and disposable income into Dharma. It turns into heat and classes and all the things that happen here. So PIMC is freestanding, and it operates that the brick and mortar side of it runs on the basis of your generosity. And one of the nicest things I ever heard about the practice of dana, the practice of generosity like this, is give until your heart feels full. It's very different from the price of this is this. It's give until you feel really full with the giving. So that's available to you. We're very slick and modern. We can use an iPad, and you can also do it online and join the stewardship circle. So there's that. I'm having a little debate internally. I think I'll do it. Why not? I went in to spend some time, as I do on Sunday mornings, with Rebecca and the kids, and she was reading this book that seemed to be kind of on target for my intention today, so we're going to have story time. Ah's Anger by Gail Silver and Christiane Kromer. Ah was in the living room building a tower, the tallest tower he'd ever built. His grandfather was in the kitchen making dinner. Ah, grandfather called out, dinner is ready. Ah added a yellow block and smiled. The tower was almost as tall as he was. Now the red one, Ah whispered, placing a red block on the very top. You're much quieter than the children were. Somebody should start jumping around. Grandfather came in from the kitchen. What a wonderful tower. It's not done yet, Ah told him. Come sit down, grandfather said. You can play more after we eat. He set the plates on the table and returned to Ah, who was balancing a green block on top of the red one. Put your blocks down now, said grandfather. Dinner is getting cold. Can you sense what's coming? The tension builds. Ah wanted to keep playing. He opened his mouth to speak, but his bottom lip quivered and the words wouldn't come out. Ah's eyes filled with tears and he started to cry. Don't make me sit here. Grandfather tried to put his arm around Ah, but Ah pushed him away, knocking the tower over and sending the blocks flying. Go away, I hate you, Ah shouted. You're upset, said grandfather. Please go to your room and sit with your anger. I'll come in when you're calm and able to talk. Now, of course, none of us have experienced anything like this since we were children, right? Ah ran to his room and leapt onto his bed. His cries grew so strong he could feel them all the way down to his belly. How do I sit with my anger, he wondered. I'm so angry, angry, angry. Finally, said a voice, I was hoping you would notice me. Did I miss a page? Hang on. No, that's it. Finally said a voice, "I was hoping you would notice me." Ah lifted his head and came face to face with a hairy red creature. "Who are you?" asked Ah, "and how did you get into my room?" "I am your anger," said the creature. "You brought me here." Good drawings, huh? I'm getting to you guys. "My anger?" The anger nodded. "Did grandfather see you come in? I'm not supposed to talk to strangers." "Don't worry, An. I'm not a stranger. I'm the part of you that comes out when things don't go your way. I'm right here every time you get angry. I know you feel scared when I'm around. I can make you cry and want to hit things. I can even make you say mean things to the people you love." An's anger started to turn the knob of the bedroom door. "Come on," he said, "I'll show you." An was tempted, but grandfather had said to stay in the room. "Wait," An called. "Maybe we can do something in here." An's anger turned and extended his hairy hand. "I know just the thing," he said. Forgot you folks out there in the internet. An took Anger's hand, and together they danced all around the room. They raised their hands overhead and spun wide circles. They used their breath to make sounds like a strong, howling wind. They got down on their knees and pounded the ground with their hands. It sounded like they were playing drums on the earth, and An liked that. Finally, they were exhausted and ready to be still. An and his anger sat together silently. They sat. They breathed in and they breathed out. And they sat some more. "I don't like to say mean things to people," said An. "But sometimes I can't help it." "I can help you," said his anger. "How can you help? I thought you were the one who was making me do these things in the first place." "That's true, but I'm also your friend. Whenever you feel angry, you should come sit with me. After we spend some time together, you might feel better." "Spending time with you is kind of fun," An said. "Do you want to stay for dinner?" "I think I'll be gone before dinner," said his anger. "Are you sure?" said An. "We're having ice cream for dessert." An's anger smiled, and An smiled back. An was tired. He took a deep breath and let out a little sigh, and when he did, his anger became smaller. An and his anger continued to breathe together. With each in-breath, An's anger got a little bit smaller, and with each out-breath, An felt a little bit better. An heard a gentle tapping on his bedroom door. It was grandfather. Grandfather and An sat together. "I'm sorry I didn't listen," said An. "I was really angry. I wanted to keep playing." Grandfather took An in his arms. "Thank you for your kind words," he said. "I sat with my anger like you asked," An said, "but we didn't just sit. We danced and played too. Do you want to meet him?" An looked up, but his anger was gone. "Grandfather," said An, "do you know what happened?" "I think I do." "You took good care of your anger and it went away." "That's right," said An. "How did you know?" "When I was a little boy, I met with my anger too." "Really? Was it because of blocks?" "No," laughed grandfather. "There were no blocks, just frogs, a lily pond, and a sun that wouldn't set. Come, let's eat dinner, and I'll tell you my story." Thank you. I suppose it should be the end. We have a remarkable human being teaching the children's program. Rebecca's really marvelous. emotions are really important to us. They're profound motivators. One way to look at them through the 4 foundations of mindfulness is that they arise out of the second foundation. The first foundation is the body. Let me back up a step from that. As I make sense of these teachings, there's really a fundamental worldview shift that is present from the very beginning. And it's manifested the very first time any person sits down to meditate. We have the instruction, sit comfortably upright, take some chosen practice, like be with your breath, or be with a loving kindness mantra, or I'll use the breath because it's so simple. Be with your breath, and then pay attention there. And so we do that, and then we fail. Right? The mind goes off into the past or future, or some theory, or some emotive complexity. And then something really miraculous happens, which is that from being completely engulfed in that and identified with that, this something that knows it appears. Ajahn Chah called it the one who knows. And what we tend to do then is to say, oh, I just woke myself up. That's actually not true, is it? Because that awakeness is not personal. This is the worldview snapping in a way. It's such a huge shift that to say to myself, I'm not this awareness. This awareness is other than me. This awareness is certainly not from the ego, because I'm all tied up in these thoughts and emotions, and this is who I think I am. And then there's, boink, awareness. How does that happen? Nobody anywhere has the least idea. Right? We've been doing it for a long time. The Buddha discovered that we can set ourselves free in this way. But it really is a radical shift. And what it implies, the practicality of it, is to say things like, well, fundamentally, we're not our bodies. That's kind of weird. We're not our thoughts. We're not our personalities. We're not our plans. We're not our disappointments. This is not who we are. And that doesn't mean to say this doesn't exist, because clearly it exists. But it is going to die. It did come out of nowhere. And to a huge extent, it does whatever it feels like, right? It thinks what it wants. The body is healthy or sick or whatever. So there's this, it's a really radical worldview shift that happens really every time mindfulness appears. Is that making sense experientially? So, we really need our emotions because they are great motivators. That the motivation of anger has kept us alive. that when there's been serious threat, and we have lived with such threat. My favorite little factoid, I haven't said it for quite a while, comes from a little book, I think it's called A Brief History of Civilization. It's a little thin book by some Canadian fellow I came across a few years ago. He begins it by saying something like this: the human brain, as it is now, has been around for quite a long time. We have lived with this brain in what we call civilization for 0.04% of our time as humans. Mesopotamia, which means that for 99.96% of our time, we lived in small hunting and gathering bands of less than 50 people. And the oldest among us were 30. Reproduction had to start early because we had to get reproduced before we were gone by 25 or so. And the injuries, all of the exemplars of our earlier brethren and sisterin and others and persons, they all have broken bones and not bullet wounds, arrow wounds. It was tough. And outside the circle, there were predators, and they were real predators, and we were prey. And so the capacity to go from calm-ish to hyper alert and enraged, ready to fight, was essential. We really needed that. And we made it. We made it so well, we may be wiping ourselves out. There's so many of us now. So, passions. We have these passionate desires. Similarly, the craziness that we do around sexuality. That have you ever gone mad around sexuality and done something totally absurd? Please raise your hand. It's true. We call it falling in love. So, what should we do? One approach to meditation that emphasizes or maybe is limited to concentration, which is what most of the meditation in the marketplace is about, concentration. And it's powerful. We can learn relatively quickly to calm the mind through focusing on something. I'm going to sit in my meditation posture. No matter what comes up, I'm going to come back to my breath, let's say. Or maybe back to my mantra. Or maybe back to a visualization. Or maybe back to a repetitive movement. And what I'm going to do is reject and suppress all thoughts and everything. And I will find myself in a very calm spot. I'm thinking of an experience I had, shockingly, 45 years ago now. I was working at a meditation center, and people came and did 1 month of very intensive meditation. And a fellow came, and he'd been doing TM, Transcendental Meditation, for 15 years or maybe more. He had never missed a day. And when in my role teaching, when someone tells me they've never missed a day, I'm immediately on alert. It's like that's a bit unusual. But anyway, he'd never missed a day, and he started the sitting. It was a lot. It was about 7 hours a day of walking and 7 hours a day of sitting at this retreat. Pretty classic Burmese training model. And he didn't like the walking meditation. He wanted to sit. He wanted to stay because he had developed the capacity to go into a very pleasant state with his mantra. And Sujata, the teacher, insisted that he do the walking. And after about 2 days or so, he started sort of becoming a little unglued. And then he's discovered that he was feeling these feelings that were ferreted out to be anger. And it turned out that he had been suppressing his unwholesome emotions quite effectively for more than a decade. And he realized he was unhappy in his life, with his wife and with his work and so on. And after about 4 days or 5 days, it was clear that the retreat wasn't the right thing to do. The right thing to do was to go home and start cleaning up the shadow material, the unhappiness that was all around him and in him. So there's something else that we can do in meditation. It's very, very foundational in what we do here. This is called insight meditation. Satipatthana, vipassana. Insight, vipassana, seeing how things really are. And so you'll notice that we really do. Could someone close the window? Thanks. I love the sound of kids, but it's distracting to me. I just remembered a little booklet that I read from a monk friend of mine, Ajahn Chandako. It's a modernization of an old rendition from the Buddha, The Wings of Awakening, Concentration on Mindfulness. If you wanted to cut down a tree and you had a sledgehammer, you could bash away at it for a long time and not much would happen. If you wanted to cut down a tree and you had a straight razor, you could hack at it for a long time and not much would happen. But if you marry the two of those and you have a heavy straight razor, a really sharp axe, then you can really do something. And so the metaphor with that is that, I always forget which is which, the concentration, if we can concentrate the mind and really pay attention with it, it's like the sledgehammer. If we can put a really sharp edge on it, which is mindfulness and the capacity of knowing, then whatever we attend to, its structure, its nature, its truth opens up before our consciousness. Is that making sense? That if we can, let's say there's a sensation happening in the body, and you turn toward it with, let's say there's a lump in the throat, and you turn toward it intentionally with concentration and mindfulness, you may discover what that lump in the throat is about. It might be an emotion. It might be it might be a sore throat. But by learning how to attend in a stable and awake way, we start unveiling things. We start noticing that nothing really lasts. And it's really true. It's not just an idea. We start noticing that there are great pleasures in life and displeasures, but they're really not, they don't satisfy. And we start noticing that this that I'm taking to be myself, the stories that I tell, that they too are porous. Right? That the way we see the way we see our experience, that we construe a reality out of, isn't quite how it is, or radically isn't how it is. So emotions. I have a particular history with anger. I think I talked about this in our Wednesday night class last week. Yeah. There was a fair amount of anger in my family of origin. But my role was to be really good and to not get angry and to be present. My father got angry. My mother was really angry, but only occasionally exploded with it. Alcohol was involved often. But I grew up really thinking that I wasn't angry, that I didn't have anger. Such people are very dangerous. They're the person who in their spiritual advertising say, I am always loving and never have a bad thought and so on. And I approach such people carefully because they probably have a 12-inch knife in their boot. Because while they're hugging you sweetly, they might be doing you in because they don't know how angry they are or how dangerous they are. And that was true for me. And I had really bad migraines and terrible allergies. And it was true into my 20s. People around me knew I was angry. They knew well I was angry, but I didn't. And so it was very buried. In fact, one of the encounters with that, at that meditation center where I was speaking of working, I'd gone there to do, it turned out to be 2 months of intensive practice. And a few days, 3 days into it, I spoke to the assistant kind of guy. And can you imagine it? They had no yogurt. I mean, it was just ridiculous. There was no yogurt. And I told him that. And he said, come with me, and took me out into the garden. I remember the spot very well. And he said, Robert, let me get the words right. Oh, I'm forgetting. But the essence of it was, people like you who don't think they're angry are often riddled with hatred. Good God. That was so offensive. And something happened inside. And I didn't know what it was. And he said, have a good day. And it was such a gift. It really was. But I didn't know what to do with it, because I had never, like this little boy, I hadn't learned how to relate to it. It was in the psychology words, it was ego dystonic. It was not part of me. Whoops. Other people, particularly men, I was raised with great disdain and anger toward men. Particularly men got angry, but not me, because I was good. I took care of my mommy, and I was a good boy. And that was the beginning of something that occurred. It was this. I can't remember. Was it the same? I think it was the same summer. Yeah, I did a mountaineering instructor certification course with the National Outdoor Leadership School. 5 weeks in the Tetons, going in from the backside in Idaho. And it was wonderful, 5 weeks in the mountains. And at the end of it, the instructors, the 3 instructors met with each person to tell them whether they'd passed or not, and so on. And they told me, I got there, and they said, oh, your climbing skills are fantastic, and your mountaineering capacity is... There's just this one thing that you need to work on, and that's your anger. This was before the yogurt incident. And of course, I don't remember it very well, but they told me 3 instances in which my anger had shown. And one of them was... I feel a little sadness as I talk about it. I was at the river fishing with one of the other guys and one of the instructors, and I can't remember what it was, but I said something really nasty to him that I had not remembered I said. It was outside of my... And when they said it, it blew my circuits. And as soon as I was finished with them, I went and I charged... we were in the mountains, and I climbed about 3,000 feet up a trail, and I didn't know what it was. I was out of control internally, but I didn't know what it was. Because I never had the good fortune of someone who could help me with that. So there was a long journey of befriending that part of myself, that angry part, and therapy and relationships, and I am still significantly anger phobic. I know when my wife Jennifer gets irritated and somewhat angry, there's inside this little kid who's so scared and who thinks what I should do is get out of here. This is not safe. And what sometimes I do is to go and sit for a while and discover, so what is this? And then I can comfort that part of myself. And along the way, I've become a little more comfortable in expressing anger or irritation, but it's still a personality weakness that when anger starts to emerge, there's a strong judgment of it bad. Shouldn't have that, Robert. So anger is one, very potent one. Shame. Shame is a primary affect, and I'll give a talk on shame soon. Guilt, when guilt arises, what the words would be is, you've done something wrong. When shame arises, the words are, you are wrong. There is something fundamentally wrong with you. And we all have shame, and some of us have been raised in contexts where shame was used hugely, and we actually have shame as one of the primary threads of our identity, shame-based being. Now, what about joy, happiness, delight? If we've had to use a lot of energy to learn how to repress certain emotions, they all go, and we get flatter. So what should we do? Fortunately, we have a bunch of wonderful tools here. One thing we have is community, and we're learning. We're working with each other, and we're meeting regularly, and we're having small groups, and sometimes all the different emotions will emerge. I'm remembering a brief statement years ago. I was at a teachers' conference at Green Gulch, the Zen Center near San Francisco, and the farm. And the people who lived at Green Gulch had been living together at that point, I think, for 25 years, close proximity. And one of them said, the secret of Sangha is that it's like a rock grinder, like a rock polisher. You take your personalities and you put them in the grinder and you throw in some of that grinding stuff, the rouge, and then you grind the personalities against each other for years, and ultimately something smooth and shiny starts to emerge. And that's my view of marriage, long-term relationship. Right? You take two people who basically don't fit together, and then you grind them together for a long time, and maybe love emerges. Maybe we start to learn how to love each other in our radical difference from each other. So that's one of the things we have as community. We also have this remarkable practice where we learn to go sit in our room, and we learn some skills of concentrating the mind. Concentration is really helpful. So we learn how to sit down and exert that subtle but really persistent effort. I'm going to come back to the breath. I'm coming back. And it's not, damn, I failed, or you should be better than this by now. Those are all distractions which we have to work with. But it's that capacity of, so gently realizing, wow, this breath is really interesting. And this sense of calm that's arising is really interesting too. And over time, we develop the synapses and the capacity to concentrate and to experience the delight and the ease of concentration. And that grows over weeks, months, years, decades. There's also this other hand of the practice, or this other side of it, which is to do with insight and studying or exploring what is. So I come to meditation. Let's say I come to meditation and I'm feeling really, stick with irritation for a minute. So I can concentrate some, but there's this thing happening, this feeling in the, maybe clenching the jaw or clenching an arm or something. And so we intentionally take awareness away from the primary object, the breath, and take it into this secondary object. I'm just giggling because Jennifer and I are doing end of life, getting our ducks in a row, the paperwork, and not that either of us are dying, we hope, but and among them is cemetery thoughts. And I've joked for years, but I think I'm actually going to do it, that I'm going to have a little gravestone, and it'll have around the outside, rising and falling, or the most predominant object, which is the core of the teachings. If you can stay with your breath, stay with your breath. But if you can't, then examine consciously whatever else is happening. It's a little cryptic message from the grave. So how do we do that? Every emotion has a body base. Now that's a pearl of wisdom. And it's hard to follow thoughts. It's hard to attend to thoughts. And where do emotions exist? It's kind of hard to find them, but one place they exist is somewhere in the body, because they are bioelectronic cognitive phenomena. They exist as chemistry. So if you can find where they exist, this emotion exists, and it's a little slowed down, then you can take this mind, which is capable of focusing, and take it in there, and then stay with it. Or if you've got maybe that little lump in the throat, or that little sadness, how about fear? Right? Think of what your favorite opposite, your least favorite fear is, and then pay attention to it. I've had the privilege over all these years to work with several people who had really difficult phobias, including fear of flying, fear of driving across bridges. This is a crappy city to live in if you have fear. And not just a little fear, but fear that makes it just, you do anything to not go to the other side of the city. Well, what to do with that? We can learn to turn awareness wherever that is existing. Is it in the gut? Where? Turn awareness, and then basically we do systematic desensitization. You come back to it, you pay attention, and then sometimes there will come an insight. I just remember we humans do such terrible things to each other. The one which had to do with the bridges was the father playfully holding the small child over the edge of a bridge and terrifying her again and again. Right? Oh, isn't this cute? I mean, we do that kind of thing. So, is this making sense? Sometimes the emotions come up very suddenly, and then it's hard to notice them, hard to catch them. But other times they come up small. And if they do come up, yes, you got that one.
They disappear. Sometimes you look at them and they're gone.
Exactly, right. Because they're so used to not being seen, and they're ego dystonic. They're not, I don't want to know that's part of me. So it runs out of the room. And the purpose isn't to get rid of the emotions. It's to discover that I am not my emotions. And then to use them skillfully. Same with the thinking mind, the obsessive, worrying thinking mind. One of our, I forget, this came from one of the brain meditation people. I've had the chance to watch with 4 children in my life when they hit puberty. Of course, it was kind of hell at times as well, but to watch what happened to their minds, right? When the puberty hormones hit, the capacity of abstraction explodes. Complex thinking. I forget there's a word for it. But the complexity goes nuts. What if this happens? And what if that happened? And what if this? And then there's these, and that's an essential development of human consciousness for our survival. So that we can create, and this mind is really brilliant at it, we create futures, imagined futures. And some of them have been essential for our survival. What if the fish don't run this year? What if the deer don't come? What if the other tribe on the other side of the hill attacks? What will we do? And so then we prepare. And so we prepare, and then those of us that have prepared well get to pass on our genes, and we survived. So worry, basic anxiety and worry is highly selective for survival. So we all have that. And some of us have it more than others. Some of us get a genetic loading of it, which makes it generalized anxiety disorder or worse. And so, however, what can we do? Well, since we're not our bodies, then we can work with them. We can learn concentration skills, and we can learn how to really calm down fast. I mean, that's a discoverable, developable skill. But we also can learn to notice, here's the mind, look at that. It's just created this image of this thing that, quote, I fear, and it's really just an image, and I can relinquish it and be here in the present moment with my body. And here's my partner, friend, colleague, employee. Look, I can see how they're flipping out. I don't have to get angry at them. I can have compassion and maybe help them learn how not to go there. Or I certainly don't need to do the resonance thing where I get angry at them for being angry. I can't remember if I talked about this here. A few weeks ago, I was in Florida with Jennifer and her mother and her stepdad, and all three of them have bad ears and wear hearing aids, except Mom forgets hers because she has advanced dementia. And we're out at breakfast, and they're yelling at each other. She's getting angry because she doesn't like being reminded she forgot something, and it's Jennifer's mother, so she's having her reactions. And I discovered that I was angry at Jennifer for being angry at her mother. This is really brilliant, isn't it? Common, right? It's what we do. We resonate, mirror neurons and all that stuff. So, but I had enough emotional intelligence to pause and realize the only thing I can really do here is relax. They're going to do what they're doing, and it's not going to do any good for me to say anything, to just tell Jen, you shouldn't be angry at your mother now. So that'd be stupid. I've done it, of course. But the only thing, and it made breakfast was quite okay. I was nice to the waitress, and they had their battles. So, emotions, making sense? Any question? I can usually count on you, KB.
I could say I have hundreds of questions, but at the same time, I guess my biggest problem is that when I do that.
Can you grab this? I know. The older we get, the harder it gets.
My biggest issue with this is when stuff comes up, it's usually in a big knot and it's all tied up with other things. And when I try to look at it, it vanishes on me. And I don't feel like I'm able to. But then sometimes, in the middle of the day, doing something entirely different, I'll have a little flash of, that was that,
Yep.
But when I try to face the knots, they overwhelm me still. I can't, and then disappear. So I get frustrated.
Yeah.
Robert, I was struck by the fact that when you talk about emotions coming up, you're not talking about joy coming up. You're talking about negativity coming up because it's not People don't struggle with joy coming up. People struggle with anger, fear, resentment, hatred, all those. So really the large part of what you're talking about is the negative emotions and how we deal with those, because does anybody need instruction on how to deal with joy and happiness?
Yes, talk to Gary, because he's teaching the Brahma Viharas, love, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity, which is what's left when we no longer are having the rushes of all these constrictions.
Right, but you've got to get through the negative emotions first in order to get to those, right?
Well, we can simultaneously cultivate the others. We can cultivate love and we can cultivate compassion, and we're doing that. When I sit with sadness or fear or hatred, jealousy, the act of opening to that is love. Love, in love, there's room for everything. And so this entire direction is fueled with love. Because if we hate the hatred, we're stuck. It's the same old thing. So, turning toward with an open heart. Gary.
But of course people have problems with the good, so-called good emotions too. There's self-pity, there's unworthiness, there's resistance of all the causes and conditions, our conditioning, the negative voice that we inherited from maybe one or both of our parents. I don't deserve this. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah. So this works with all of it.
That's a tough one. I don't deserve to be loved. Let me find this if I can. Any other question is good too. Come on.
I'll meet you halfway.
Oh.
Or nearly halfway.
At this point in my practice, I've had the experience of sitting with uncomfortable emotions and letting them run their course, and then they calm down. But the one emotion that I haven't had that experience with is shame. It seems like the more I'm present with shame, the bigger it gets. Maybe that's the thinking driving it, probably.
May I make a reading suggestion? It's Shame, the Power of Caring by Gershon Kaufman. I came across it maybe 35 years ago, 30 years, and then he came to Portland and did a 3-day workshop for mental health professionals, which I gobbled up. And he was he's the progenitor, he's the fellow who really introduced shame into the vocabulary. His notion, among others, was had Freud been working with women in Vienna who if they were addressing their shame rather than the affect of shame, rather than anxiety, all of Western psychology would have been based in shame rather than anxiety, which is the way it is. And he wrote another book for clinicians, which was the etiology of all of our various, not all, but a lot of the things of the diagnoses that we have from a shame base. And they actually make much more sense than anxiety base. Shame is more primitive in a way. So that book, I read the first 20 pages and lost it. It was really just difficult. And about 6 months later, I mentioned that, and my wife at the time said, "Oh, no," she asked me, "What happened to that book you were reading?" And I said, "What book?" And I knew exactly where it was, but it was one of those that was changing things a lot. So that's a great next step. And in my journey, I literally have had to have someone hold my hand, literally, when I went into some of the shame places, because it was so black, so hopeless, so original sin-ish, so primitive, that it's sad. Without a reminder of humanity and love and continuation, I couldn't go there. So,
Could you say the name of the book again?
Shame, the Power of Caring, and you'll find it with that. Powerful. Whew. That unworthiness, I don't deserve to be alive. It was it's funny, the things that come up. I had a conversation with Achan Sumedho, the great Thai forest master, one time, and I held it together in the room with him, but as soon as I left, I went out, I found a tree that I sat and hugged for a long time, just bawling my eyes out, because the message I got from him, a stalwart of the Thai forest tradition, was that it was really okay to be alive. It was really okay to be me with all my unfinishedness and questions and concerns, and that I'd been using to some degree the meditation to push that away, that I'm going to become such a good person that I'll finally be worth loving. And it turned out that, shocking to me, I was lovable from the start. So that helped. Shame, the Power of Caring. Do we have kids in the chute? You hear them? Well, thank you all for coming and for being here and for listening. I don't get to play this role unless you're here. And so it's really a great gift to me and a privilege. And I'd like to just call to the altar of our hearts Ruth Dennison, my teacher of 40 years who passed away 4 years ago. And we're here because of her great wisdom and generosity. So I invite you now to make a big circle. We'll hold hands and the kids will come in, and then we'll have a coffee and tea after that. Thank you, dear friends out in internet land. Oh, I know the microphone is over here. Oh. May I have...
Engaging the Dharma. Engaging the Dharma meeting will meet at 12:30.
Yes.
Living room. Thank you.
Wait. May I have the other microphone? Where did it go? Thank you, Cricket. Cricket, you're sparkling again. Cricket is our beloved bookkeeper. But what she has at the bottom of her emails is worth noting. Life, what? Without, you say it.
Not dancing is a waste.
Not dancing is a waste of feet. All right. You could come a little closer. Come this way. Come on in. There we go. Well, hi everybody. May I hold your hand? Thank you. It's got a lot of enthusiasm. How about your hand? Thank you. May I touch your hand rather than hold it? So, here we are, human beings with hands. How lucky. Please give that hand on your right a little squeeze and think some kind thought about this person. A wish. What would your wish for this person, for today and the rest of their life? Be really generous. The person on your left, giving that hand a squeeze. Notice someone's wishing you well too. And the person between these hands, yourself. What would you wish for this being who is yourself? May all beings everywhere benefit from the merits of our practice today. And who do we have? The three of you. Well, you're nicely positioned. Here you go. 1, 2, 3, go.
May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Ah, very nice and harmonious. Uh-oh. Oh, do you want to come up and blow, or you want to miss that part? Oh, not yet. Oh, wait. Oh, whew. Now the way I'm going to count, not yet, but I'm going to do the count. Now everyone think of a wish. You folks at home too, think of a nice wish. Deep breath, everyone, in. 1, 2, 3, blow. Come on. Oh, yay. So thank you all. Oh, the Engaging the Dharma meeting today is at 12:30 in the living room. I shall be gone teaching for the next 2 weeks. And Jim's on the first, and then Caverly Morgan the second one. And please come. All right. Thank you all. Ha! Oh, I found a child. This way. I'm going to put you. All right.